Employee motivation in the UK is at some of the lowest levels in Europe, which is bad news for most businesses, but a massive opportunity for you. Because if you can motivate your team properly, you can dominate your industry. And you can make that a reality with this 5I model. Hello, so what we're going to talk about today is employee motivation and how to unlock it in any business. And the problem that most businesses face is that they assume that when you add a team to the business, everything's going to get better. The owner and the leadership team are going to have more time to focus on the things they enjoy and the things where they make the biggest difference, whether that's sales and strategy and marketing, whatever it might be. And the team are going to go and deliver more of what we need at scale so we make more money. That's the ideal. But what actually happens most of the time due to human psychology is the owner and leadership team get busier putting out fires, dealing with operational issues that are created by the bigger team, and spending more time managing. So you actually end up busier than you were before. The team aren't able to, or don't want to, deliver the quality that we need at scale. So then we have operational issues, and therefore the cost that we're spending on the team doesn't return us a return that makes it worth it. So we end up in this situation where the leadership team are busier, we're not making any more money, there's more issues, and often the team end up unhappy as well. So that's not me just being negative, but this is the common scenario in businesses, especially in the UK. And UK employee engagement data, which is collected yearly by Gallup, shows us that this is true statistically. The majority of employees, the vast majority of employees in the UK are not happy and not engaged at work. And engaged is a fancy way of saying, are they motivated, essentially. So this is the common theme. And what we want to go through today is, how do you actually get people motivated? No BS guide, not, perks, not the latest trend, but what does human psychology tell us? What actually works in businesses? And how do you actually get your team to genuinely want to deliver a result for your business and be motivated at work? And we can break that down into 5 I's, into 5 steps, so that we can understand it and make it easy to remember. But first of all, before we get into the 5I model on how to motivate your employees, we have to make sure we've got the basics in place, right? So there's no point in trying to do this stuff, trying to drive up employee motivation, put models in place, put structure in place, if the basics aren't there. And the basics are you being an arsehole? If you're an arsehole as a boss or an arsehole as a manager, you're always going to have demotivated employees. So that's the first one. Like, are you being an arsehole? And if you are, you need to fix that. Don't expect to have a motivated team if you're being a dick. So that's the very first thing that we've got to fix. You've got to genuinely give a shit about your team and your employees and your business, of course. And you've got to make sure that you give a shit about both. Because if you don't, if it's just, I just want people to come and make me money, I don't really care if they enjoy it or not, well, then don't listen to this this video, this episode. So that's the first one. The second one, which is often overlooked, is your team, are the people you're hiring a good cultural fit? Because if they're not a good cultural fit, then the issue's not with how we're motivating them, the issue's with their rapport fit. So we need to be clear on that. And the way that you do this as a business is you should be clear on your top 3 to 5 values as a company. There's no right or wrong with this, but you need to be clear on what they are, so that you can then use those 3 to 5 values to check if we've got the right people that are a cultural fit for our business. If we've got a business that's high performance, high pressure, and we've got people that are not up for high performance and high pressure, then that's a cultural fit, and vice versa. So be clear on what your values are as a business and make sure that people are a good values fit. If they're not a good values fit, the best thing you can do for them and for your business is make them aware of that and move them out of the business. And then the third one, which is kind of obvious, is, are you exploiting them? Right? If you've got it set up where you just kind of take the piss out of your staff and they have to do silly stuff and you're asking them to work for free, essentially, work hours that they're not paid to do. If you're doing stuff like that, they're not going to be motivated, right? So those are the 3 basics. Don't be an arsehole, make sure they're a values fit, and make sure you're not exploiting them. Now, the fact that you're watching a video about wanting to motivate, or listening to an episode about wanting to motivate your team, suggests to me that you're probably not doing those things. But if you are, go and fix those before you try and implement what we're implementing here. Before we jump into motivation, we need to be aware of something called the matcher model, right? So motivation is one of 5 reasons why your employees aren't doing what you need them to do. Okay, but sometimes your employees are motivated, but but they're not doing what you need them to do for other reasons. So this video is about how to drive up the first step of the match model, which is motivation, right? But are you clear that motivation is your actual issue? Okay, because that might be the reason they're not doing what you need them to do, but the other reasons they're not doing what you need them to do could be, so M is motivation. A, they haven't got the ability, so they don't actually have the skill set to do what you need them to do. T, they don't have the time, so they're saying yes, but they're actually overstretched. C, they're not actually clear on what good looks like, so you think you're being clear, but you're not. And then H, they're not being held to account, and no matter how committed somebody is, they need to be held to account, us included as leaders and managers. The final A, by the way, in the match model is to show appreciation. So if you've got people that are working hard and doing a good job, but we don't ever show them that we appreciate them, we always move on to the next thing, that can lead to them not wanting to do a good job. But that ultimately does full circle, brings us back to the first letter, which is M, which is motivation. Now let's assume that you've just listened to that and you're like, actually, they have got the ability, they have got the time, they are clear on what they need to do, and they are being held to account. I do appreciate them and they do know that. Actually, the only issue is motivation. Then this video is going to be really useful for you, because we're going to go through the 5 I's that you can pull to get somebody more motivated. So to get people motivated, what most businesses think is they just have to rely on pay, right? Which is the first I, incentivize. So if you've got employees that are being paid a salary and they're turning up to work, they are being incentivized in some form or another. Now, incentivizing employees is vitally important, right? Otherwise, we're a voluntary service. So we pay people to turn up, we are incentivizing them. Now, it's more important to some employees than others, and it's much less important to a lot of employees than what people think. So we tend to think in leadership and management and business ownership positions that the level of performance we can get from our employees is purely dictated by what we can pay them. And if we're in a lower paying industry, we're never going to have high levels of motivation. That's wrong. So some people are highly motivated by money, but many people aren't. But money is important, right? So we need to think about minimum standard of living and paying a living wage and all of these things. And for people that are highly motivated, we need to think about competitive salaries. And ideally, we can set our business up to be able to pay high salaries. And the other things that we can consider is bonus schemes and commissions. So is there ways that we can pay people more money without us having to risk that money? So, great example of that is a commission scheme in sales. We'll pay you more if you make more. So there are other levers you can pull, right? So I'm not going to delve into how we can incentivize and what we can do to do it more. I just want you to be aware that obviously incentivizing your employees is important, but it's only one of the 5 I's. So think about ways that you can pull that. And obviously, if you can make the team motivated and make the business make more money, it's normally easier to pay people more money. So don't get stuck in the mindset that that's the only lever you've got to pull. Right. The second I then is to inspire people. Humans are hardwired to want to feel valued and appreciated. So if we're just giving them tasks to do, then work starts to feel like work. It feels transactional. But if we're showing people what the vision of the business is and the impact that the business has on its customers or the world or a cause, and then we're also showing them that in their roles, so this is the impact that your role has on A, B, C, D, and E, it gives people meaning behind their work. It inspires them. There's a really famous story, I don't know if it's true, but I assume it is, of one of the presidents of the USA doing a tour of the NASA space station, and he saw a cleaner cleaning the floor whilst he's doing this late night tour, and he said to the cleaner, what are you doing cleaning the floors at this time? And the cleaner responded, I'm not cleaning floors, I'm helping put a man on the moon. So that's a direct example of how when we link somebody's work, i.e. cleaning the floor, to the result they're helping achieve, which is keep the space center running smooth so that we can put a man on the moon, people feel inspired. So we have to tap into people's natural desire to want to feel meaning and value. We have to inspire them around the mission of the business, the vision of the business, their department and their role. So that's the second I. So the first one is to incentivize them. The second is to inspire them. The third one then, which is really important, is to involve people. And this differs at different levels of role, but you want to involve people in your business strategy, and you want to give people the opportunity to share their thoughts and their insights. When people want to do a good job and they want to see things improve. So your employees will have lots of ideas around how the business could be better and how you can make improvements. And if you're not giving them the opportunity to share those thoughts and those insights, 2 really bad things happen. Number 1, they feel less motivated. The whole purpose of this piece of content that we're talking about here. And then the second one is you miss out on genuinely good insights into how your business could perform better. So when you go into most businesses, or when I go into most businesses, what I see is a team that are frustrated and demotivated because they've got loads of ideas around how the business could be better. And many of these businesses would make the business genuinely better, but nobody's making the time to hear them. So that's a really simple one to fix. And the easiest way that you do this is through quarterly planning. If you've got more than 15, 20 employees, you might want to do this at a departmental level as well. But if you've got less than that, do it as a business. Every quarter, get everybody together for a day, talk about how the last quarter went, what we want to achieve in the next quarter, and then what can we do to make that happen, and give people a chance to voice their ideas and their insights. There's Google used to do, I can't remember the exact rule, but I think it was a Friday or one day a week, employees in certain roles were allowed to just come up with ideas for the business. And some of Google's highest revenue generating services came as a result of that. I think Google Mail came from that, and I think Google Earth came from that, and Google Maps came from employees' ideas. So this is people in the business coming up with ideas. So not only does it increase motivation of employees because people want to feel heard, it also unlocks huge revenue and profit opportunities in your business. So number 1 is Incentivise, number 2 is Inspire, number 3 is Involve, number 4 is to invest in them. So obviously we've talked about paying people, i.e. incentivizing them, but to invest in people is to invest time into them, mentorship programs and development programs, training, whatever it might be. But if you show people that you genuinely care about them and their goals and their development, they will, through the law of reciprocity, genuinely care about your business, its goals and its improvement. So it's a really simple thing to do. Again, the main reason that most businesses aren't doing it is because they're not making the time to do it. But if you invest in people, they will care and show people that you genuinely care about them, and they're not just a number in your business. They will genuinely care about you and your business. So that's a really low hanging fruit as well. A great process to help you and your team or your leadership team and your management team start to understand the goals and interests of your wider team is to run something called the PDP, the Personal Development Plan Process. We have this as a system. You can drop it in your business. Just connect with me via the links in the show notes, and you can I'll send you a copy. So that's the 4th I. And then the 5th I is to give people independence or agency, right? So people want to feel like adults, and if you're micromanaging people or wrapping them up in strict checklists and processes, they tend to feel constrained and not trusted. So you've got to give people a level of independence. What happens a lot of time with business owners, new managers, new leaders, is obviously we don't want to fail. We don't want issues in the business. And the way in which we try to ensure that is by accidentally micromanaging people, not giving people the freedom to make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So if you want motivated people that stick around and perform at a high level, you have to give people a level of independence. Now that doesn't mean that you can't have ways of doing things and proven processes and checklists, but you should also think about how you give people the opportunity to go and do things without feeling too managed. So those are the 5 I's that we can lean on to increase our levels of employee motivation. So we've got Incentivise, we've got Inspire, we've got Involve, we've got Invest, and we've got Independent. You do those 5 things and you can achieve award-winning levels of employee motivation in your business. What most people do is they get stuck up on the Incentivise piece and they think that's the only lever they've got to pull. I did this in my first business, by the way. I used to own a gym and I had it set up so I couldn't pay my staff decent wages at the start, which we fixed eventually. And I had it in my head that, well, I'm never going to be able to make this thing great because I can't pay them enough. But I realized that for all of my staff almost, the money was important, obviously, but it wasn't the main thing. And these other 4 levers were super important to them. And by leveraging them, I could get really high levels of motivation from my team and then fix the model so that I could pay them more. So just don't get bogged down in just thinking that Incentivise is the only one. Obviously, don't forget that that's an important one. Of course it is. We have to pay our team and we have to pay our team well. And the better we can pay them, the more positive results we're going to get. But there are other things that we can do to drive up motivation. So if you want your team to do exactly what you need them to do, you need to be aware of the matcher model. Are they motivated? Have they got the ability? Have they got the time? Have they got clarity on what's needed of them? Are they being held to account, and do they feel appreciated? And then if they're not motivated, we need to lean into the 5 I's to drive those levels of motivation up. So we need to make sure that we're incentivizing them properly, that we're inspiring them around the vision and the impact of their role in their department. We need to involve them in the planning process and hear their thoughts and ideas. We need to invest in their development, and we need to give them independence to go and achieve things. And if we do those 2 things, if we link those 2 models up really well, you can have really high levels of employee retention, really high levels of employees that want to come and work for you, so interest, and really high levels of performance that isn't reliant on somebody looking over people's shoulders. And that's the dream that we all want, isn't it? Employees that stick around, that do a great job, and that do a great job because they want to, not because they're being checked on. If you want the PDP system, which kind of gives you insight to all of these things and actually unlocks all of these things, just connect with me via the show notes. There's a link to my LinkedIn or Instagram. Drop me a message on there and I will send you the PDP process, which is a 3-page template which you can drop in your business. Your managers can do for you. It tells you how and when to run these sessions, exactly what to follow in these sessions. And by doing these, it unlocks all of these 5 I's as a thing that happens on autopilot in your business. If you know somebody that is struggling to get their team motivated and would benefit from listening to this or watching this episode, please do share it with them. It's pretty easy to do. All of the different platforms have a share notes button, so just click share and share it with them. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you or chatting with you through audio next week.